Shasta Groen manipulated her capture into keeping her alive, pretending to form a connection with him until she was recused at a Denny's. It was found after his capture that around 35 others were victims of Duncan.
Born on February 25, 1963, in Fort Liberty, North Carolina, Joseph Edward Duncan III was the fourth of 5 children to Joseph Edward Duncan Jr. and Lillian Mae Duncan. The elder, Joseph Duncan, was a part of the United States Army, meaning the family would move from city to city every year, sometimes going abroad for a while. The Duncan family settled in Tacoma, Washington, when he retired from the military. Lillian Duncan was described as a domineering woman, but not much else was said about her. Duncan III, after he was arrested in 1980, claimed he was abused as a child, but his younger brother vehemently denied the claims. It was a year before this arrest, which I will explain more in a moment, that Lillian and Joseph split, leading to their 1983 divorce. After the divorce, the 3 oldest moved out while Duncan III stayed with Lillian, and the youngest moved out with Joseph. In 1978, leading up to the previously mentioned arrest, Duncan committed his first recorded sex crime. At age 15, Duncan raped a 9-year-old boy at gunpoint. This crime never came out until the following year, when Duncan was arrested for driving a stolen car and sent to Jesse Dislin Boys Ranch in Tacoma. It was there, with an appointed therapist, that the first attack was revealed. Duncan claimed to have sexually assaulted 6 boys and raped 13 younger boys by age 16. Despite what he told the therapist, Duncan was able to be released, and in 1980, he was arrested again after stealing several guns from his neighbor and using them to kidnap and rape a 14-year-old boy. Duncan was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but after 14, he was released on parole. He wouldn't remain out for long before getting arrested again in 1996, this time for marijuana use. Duncan was held on a parole violation for several weeks before once again being released, this time under new parole restrictions. For an easier time reading and understanding the entire case and timeline, we need to look at the 1996 murders of sisters Samiejo White, 11, and Carmen Cubias, 9. I'm going to go through the entire case before going back to the timeline revolving around Duncan's crimes. On July 6, 1996, Samiejo and Carmen disappeared after leaving the Crest Motel on Aurora Avenue North in Seattle shortly after 11 p.m. They, along with their mother and 3 siblings, were staying at the motel for a night. The sisters left the safety of their room to visit a Taco Times restaurant across the street, but they never returned. Police didn't know if the girls were victims of foul play or runaways at the time. It was around a year and a half later that, on February 10th, the sisters' remains were found by a transient in an abandoned barn near Northeast 195th Street and 120th Avenue Northeast in the North Creek area of Bothell. The King County Medical Examiner's officer said the girls were murdered around the time that they disappeared, and they were beaten to death with a crowbar. Duncan, after his final arrest in 2005, confessed to the murders but was never charged with the crimes. Carmen Cubias on the left and Samiejo White on the right. Back on the general timeline of crimes, Duncan was once again arrested in 1997 for violating the terms of his parole. He was released from prison on July 14, 2000, with time off for good behavior. He moved to Fargo, North Dakota, upon his release. Just like Samiejo and Carmen's case, we need to look at the case of Anthony Martinez in its entirety before getting back to the original timeline. On April 4, 1997, 10-year-old Anthony Michael Martinez was playing with a group of friends in the front yard of his home in Beaumont, California, when an unknown man approached them asking for help for a missing cat. The boys refused, but the man grabbed Anthony at knife point and dragged him into his vehicle. After a 2-week search, Anthony's nude and partially decomposed body was found in Indio, California on April 19th. Investigators found that he had been sexually assaulted and bound with duct tape. A composite sketch was available, and a partial fingerprint was taken from the duct tape. Despite the pieces of evidence the public had, It wasn't until July 2005 that bloggers noticed the similarities between Duncan and the sketch. The vehicle that Anthony was taken in also matched the description of Duncan's vehicle. The fingerprint taken from Anthony's body was matched with Duncan's, and he was officially announced on August 3rd in connection to the cold case. Anthony Martinez, AI enhanced through PixArt. The case that led to the end of Joseph Duncan occurred on May 16, 2005, when the bodies of Brenda Growing, 40, her partner Mark McKenzie, 37, and her son Slade Growing, 13, were found inside their home. Brenda's younger children, Dylan, 9, and Shasta, 8, weren't in the house, and an Amber Alert was issued. While searchers scoured the area for the siblings, police worked on processing the horrifying scene. It would be determined that all three in the home were